Blisters, blisters on my feet. Blisters, I got blisters on my feet. Doing a lot of walking these days. Boys and girls, ladies and gents, welcome back. It's Wednesday, May 19th, 2021. Here we are. Wednesday, right? Halfway through the week. Get a sip of that bad boy coffee. Hope you're all doing well. Hope you're all safe and sound. I know. We're going through a lot these days. We're going through a lot, but things are getting a little bit better. We're starting to see, or rather hear talks of opening up recreational facilities and what have you, getting outdoors. I think here in Ontario, I can speak for Ontario, I guess on the 28th is when we're deciding to open a few things up. I've heard talks of Ottawa, Quebec, getting ready to, get ready for the outdoor patio season. Hopefully we can start to move things outdoors, indoors, get it all up and running in no time. I do have a lot of blisters on my feet. Just want to share that with you guys, and it's because I do a lot of walking. Your boy likes to walk, your boy likes to hike and get around the city, and that's what I do, man. That's what I do. I get some exercise and contemplate life. Your boy likes to contemplate life. Going through a lot of changes, as a lot of you are probably going through a lot of changes right now as well. Again, assessing our situation, assessing our circumstances, reassessing circumstances, and then having to make decisions accordingly. Trying to make the best of it is what I'm trying to tell you. And again, if you're a long-time listener, thank you very much for all your love and support. If you're a first-time listener and you're tuning in, you're like, where can I find this weird dude? He's just showing up in the middle of the YouTubes and the internets. Where can I find you if I want to get it on a regular schedule? You can find your boy here on Instagram, on YouTube, on Patreon, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, and Mondays. We're doing 4 days a week right now. We might spice it up. Every now and again, and we're just experimenting, learning as we go along the way. Trying to listen mostly. I know I come in here and talk quite a bit, but most of the time I'm spending reading and listening and observing. Trying to learn. It's that time of year where everybody's talking about, getting healthy, going out, getting exercises, getting activities, doing them athletics, and you gotta have balance. And what I want you to do, if you're looking for a great workout regimen, I want you to just focus on one body part. Let's go this summer. Let's just focus on arms. I don't want you to worry about anything else. Just focus on your arms. Let's make it a skinny leg summer, aka hairy knee summer, aka I don't know anymore, but let's just focus on your arms this week, or this year rather. I want you to just do bicep curls and tricep pull downs, pullbacks, push-ups. Do just work on your arms. That's what I want you. I want you to get massive, juicy arms, no legs. Because realistically, what's the point of having large legs? They're just gonna weigh you down. Large legs would probably qualify you for running away, not staying put. Whereas if you got them big arms, if you got massive arms, it'll just you're there to hold on. You're holding on, you're not going anywhere. Pros and cons, you know what I'm talking about? You gotta just put it on the pedestal and weigh them all out. See what works for you. But let's just, forget about the legs. Most of the time, nowadays, we're sedentary. Most of the time, a lot of us are working from home. Nobody even sees your legs. So as long as the upper body is looking all right, you're tip top. The rest of it, you could be just, who cares? Who cares about the rest of it? Just focus on your arms. Do a lot of bicep curls, tricep pull downs, push downs. Do all that. Just make sure. I want it to be, because what's with balance? Everybody's always talking about, are you proportionate? Are you symmetrical? Cares? Let's go asymmetrical. Let's have your upper body weighing twice or 3 times as much as your lower body, or your lower torso, if you will. So let's work on that. I want to see this summer People with giant arms, no legs. Giant arms, no legs. Or tiny little legs. Tiny legs, giant arms. That's what I want to see. And then who knows, maybe we'll spice it up in the next year or next week or next month, depending on how fast the growth process is. Really, we'll go giant legs, no arms. Spice it up, because that's the thing. Everybody's always like trying to distribute it evenly. I was like, everybody can do that, but we all know what matters or something, right? Hopefully, that's what I'm talking about. Because like that's the thing. And if anybody asks you, you just tell them. Like, why do you have giant arms? Well, you tell them you're in the Olympics, all right? You tell them you're the master of the rings. Is that what it's called? I forget. It takes a lot of upper body strength. You tell them you're in the Olympics, okay? Tell them that your coaches have told you to focus on your arms, and that's what I want you to do. I don't know why we got off on working out on. I guess I did my own little bicep curls and tricep pull downs this morning. That's why I feel like, yeah, it's important to talk about it. So that's what I want you to do. Forget every other body part, focus on the arms. Okay? Good. Man, oh man. Ladies and gents, it's time to be hopeful, time to be, grateful, time to be looking for new beginnings, but at the same time, there's a lot of nonsense that keeps going on around the world, right? That impacts all of us one way or another. More so, we're a global village, a global community. It's a lot of things impact us, and I've just been listening, trying to make sense of it all and see what I can do to be of assistance if I can. And sometimes that just means work on yourself. Work on yourself. You don't necessarily need to change the world, and if you want to change the world, you can start by working on yourself, and that's what I'm trying to do. Take some time, work on myself, reassess my situation, and move forward accordingly. I don't know, things are changing. Sitting here on the, on the periphery, on the sidelines, if you will, doing that shadow boxing, just kind of maintaining a pace, also not overexerting ourselves. That's also something that I've had to learn and also apply. It's easier said than done, right? Because we've been taught to, go, stay productive, this, that, and the other. But at the same time, I think now more than ever, we're realizing that, man, wage slavery doesn't work, 60, 70, 80-hour work weeks don't work, the rat race doesn't work. Working hard works, but when the playing field's kind of leveled out a little bit or something, dude. But a lot of things, man, I've, sometimes I'll be listening or reading throughout the week for interesting points that I'd like to be able to talk to you guys about. And sometimes today I'd like to, I'll piggyback on someone. It was, this gentleman came on the JRE show yesterday and had a great talk. His name is Andy Norman. Some of you guys might already know. I don't need to, yeah. It's a really cool talk, really interesting talk. So Andy Norman's this philosopher, and he had a lot, go check it out. Go check out the interview, and he's written a book. But he came up with a question on the experience, and it's an interesting question because it's something that it impacts my work, it impacts my life, and to some degree, to a large degree, I think it impacts all of our lives. And I guess he postulated this question asking, how do we regulate our thinking without silencing ourselves? Yeah. How do we regulate our thinking without silencing ourselves? That's a really good question. Especially nowadays, right? That's how it's always been. I think a lot of times we want to talk, we want to listen, we want to be heard. We're talking about all these, moving along, we're always talking about freedom of speech, freedom of expression. How do you regulate your thinking? What's regulation anyway? Is it a form of control? Maybe. Is all control bad or negative? No. You need some control. You can't just be, and that's the thing. How do we go about it? And I'm just trying to think about it. I've thought about it for some time, a long time. And every time I come in, I kind of have to think about it because it's like I got a lot to say. think I want to be contributing in a positive manner. It's like I don't want to come in and, you know, I want to make my life easier, and I want to make everybody else's lives easier as well. So how do we go about regulating our thoughts without silencing ourselves? And that's the thing. I think you need to have dialogues, you need to have conversations, and you need to have better speech. I don't believe that banning anybody or silencing anybody or censoring anybody works. At the same time, I think every individual should have we should be taught how to think and regulate our thoughts in a positive manner. Because you know what I mean? It's, well, let me elaborate a little bit. It's like any other right, any other privilege that we have. It's a combination of both, right? It's a right and a privilege. Like driving, for example, you know, everybody can do their driving school, go take a couple of classes, maybe get mom and dad sit beside you a little while, show you the basics, and then you start practicing little by little, and you know, you got to do a couple of tests here and there. It takes you some time, but eventually you'll learn how to drive on the road. You realize that, you know, maybe that's the best way to do it, and that is the best way to do it, because you don't want to take your car and just drive. Like, we've had incidents like that, geez Louise. That's what I'm talking about. So that's the thing, everything comes with responsibility, right? You don't just grab your car and go on the sidewalk or on the turf or what have you. It's so thoughts too are sort of a vehicle, if you will. We're a vehicle, we're a vessel, and yeah, you can't just be like, out of my way, coming through, and just, you know, go over everything and everyone. It's because you think you're the only one who's got the right. That's not cool. Everybody should share. Everybody should share and listen, and that's the thing. I don't believe in censor. I just believe in better speech and better dialogue, essentially. Let's hear everybody out. Let's hear everybody out. Given the context of everything, let's hear everybody out and see what everybody has to say. And I think we can come up with reasonable solutions to our problems. I really do. But that's the thing, sometimes we like to, you know, we like the easy answer, where it's not going to happen in this lifetime, or it's not going to happen, it's been so long, what am I talking about? Well, earlier this week, I think we got a little bit of a topic, or a discussion rather, going on the topic of, you know, Israel versus, oh, I hate putting it because it's not versus, dude, it's just Israel and Palestine. You know, you guys have probably heard, and you guys have probably seen the videos on the YouTubes and the internets. Horrible stuff going down, and it's been going down forever, for generations. It's like, how do we stop it? And some people are like, oh, this is just too complex of a topic, too sensitive, it goes way back, playback, and we can't fix it. Or I don't believe that's the guy. I really think we can fix it, but a lot of these topics are interconnected, and we need to just, you know, what did we talk about earlier this week? We talked about othering. You know, wanting to push a person away, or wanting to push a person away, or a portion of the society away, and, you know, point fingers and indicate that you're different because of these reasons and we cannot coexist, so therefore you must remove yourself and go elsewhere. We've done that to many different communities throughout history. Obviously, we've had wars about this, massive wars. World War II was obviously, a large portion of it was due to that, the anti-Semitism, and I don't want to see any of that stuff. I just think people everywhere, people want to have the same things, really. It's just hard to find your group. It's hard to find your family. That's the thing. I try to look at everyone as my group. I don't put any labels on myself. I have friends from all walks of life, from all different backgrounds. I've always, you know, that's how it is. That's how I find a lot of people, especially in Canada, you know, a place where it's so multicultural and diverse. You find so many different types of people intermingling all the time. relatively well. I mean, nowhere's perfect. Everywhere's got its little issues here and there, and obviously we can be doing better. But you know, we have so many different types of people here living, coexisting peacefully. Everybody respects each other's opinions, rights to practice whatever they want to practice, rights to not practice whatever they don't want to practice. And it's important for us to talk about it because I'd like to be able to preserve what we've got going on because it's great, and I'd like us to sort of be, maybe we can't, you know, maybe we can be an alternative. Maybe we can be an example of how things can be done, and not to say that it's perfect, we're just striving to make it better. But I just don't believe that it's not something that we can't fix. A lot of times I think it's problematic where we give people too much power anywhere in the world, where there's just individuals who come into power and stay there for 30, 40 years and rule. That's where it becomes problematic. Yeah. See, like, I'm trying to figure it out, like, like, obviously it's a complicated issue, it goes way back, but I'm just trying to, like, let's figure a way out of this. And I really don't think bombing each other, I really don't think, you know, hurting each other works. I think here's the thing, a lot of decisions are made based on either fear or love, right? And I think right now, I think initially, like, you know, when anything happens that's of a large magnitude, that has a large impact, everybody starts to, you know, act based on fear. And fair enough, rightly so. It's primal, it makes sense. You want to protect yourself, you want to protect your families. But that's the thing, it's like, when are we going to open up our eyes and realize that most people, and that's the thing, when we talk about politics, when we talk about governments, I'd like to be able to detach those two notions from the people. Because like, you talk to people, if you travel anywhere, you talk to people, you hang out with people, you get to know them, you get to learn about their likes, their dislikes, their little mannerisms. You realize, despite the little tiny differences, we've got a lot in common. We've got a lot in common. Everybody wants security, everybody wants a little home, everybody wants some food, everybody wants families, friends, access to education, healthcare. And a lot of things go hand in hand. I don't think we can just, you know, I don't want to ever, yeah, that's the thing. I'm always an eternal optimist, and things have been getting better and better gradually throughout history. We're at the best times, despite the fact that nonsense still happens and you still got knuckleheads everywhere. It's getting better. It's getting way better. But this is the thing. Every generation can do a little bit more, and hopefully we can just reduce it. I don't think we can ever completely get rid of violence or random acts of terrorism, but we can control it. We can, you know, we can guide it. We can channel these energies, and let's work together instead of pitting, you know, that's the thing. And how deep do you guys want to go down the rabbit hole? How deep do you guys want to, like, that's the thing, do you want to really fix it, or do you want to just, you know, because it's easy to just be like, well, it's their problem. It's their problem. It's not my problem. It's not having to get your shit together. It's not my problem. You do it. You fix it. It's over there. It's not my concern. Until it starts becoming your concern. Especially these days, nothing really, you know, stays in just one place. Something happens across the globe, in less than a few seconds, everybody already knows about it. Goes back to, you know, how like, that's the thing. We're all the same, but we've got all these little different intricate parts, and we want the easy answer. I want to get to know you right now. I want to know if I'm safe with you right now. I want to know the answers right now. And I know I don't want to waste time. This guy's time's valuable, right? That's how we all feel. Or this lady's time's the most valuable, right? You don't want to just like, oh man, it takes time to get to know people, right? It takes time to get to love and accept something or somebody. But yeah, we just want the easy solution. But it's like, And it's easy to point fingers. Who came first? Was it the chicken or the egg? Who came first? Who cares who came first? Who cares who casted the first stone? Because if we just continue doing that same thing, it's gonna just, an eye for an eye. It's gonna make the world go blind. That's what it is. And sure, I could just, a lot of people, and we'll talk about it. We'll talk about this, we'll talk about funny stuff, we'll talk about so many different things, but if we don't fix it, it'll just be a reoccurring event, like many other things that are reoccurring events. And every time it happens, we act surprised. We're like, oh, how could this happen? Well, how could it not? We keep doing the same thing. How could it not? Yeah, it gets me a little bit bummed out when I see innocent people on any side, whether it's, you see videos of Palestinian children. It's horrible getting killed, or on the other side you see Israeli folks, Israeli children getting hurt, getting killed, families losing their homes. It's and I don't have the answer. I don't think any one person has the answer, but I think we should put down whatever we're doing, put down the arms, put down the extreme acts that were taken up, and really listen and talk. And you're like, oh, I don't have time to talk. I'm busy bombing here. Busy exploding here. I'm like, well, put it down for a second. Let's talk. What do you want? What do you want? Let's make it clear what it is that you want, because if people don't know what you want, you're not going to get what you want. And you're like, man, I've said it before, I've said it a million times, you should know by now. Well, I understand there's a lot of frustration out there. But that's all it takes, listening and really, maybe sometimes, that's the thing, have you ever had those moments where you say something to someone and you feel like they've heard you, they feel like they've heard you, but they've not really heard you, they've listened, but they've not really heard you, and that happens all the time. In so many different realms, whether it's on a personal level, when you got like a relationship or a group of friends, larger society, you'd expect that everybody would be able to get you, right? A lot of times people are like, oh, I just wish people would understand me. I just wish people would get me. It takes a lot for people to get you. Sometimes it takes a lot for you to get you. That's what I tell myself anyway, right? You have those conversations. You're like, well, how well do you know yourself? And you're like, well, let's peel back the onions. How well do we know ourselves? What do we want? And it's like, again, most people want the same thing. But a place and a situation like Israel and Palestine, I think it could be easily mitigated and solved, and I think the impediments are the extremists on every side. So Hamas is like a terrorist organization backed by probably by the Iranian government, which are not cool. And it's funny because I'll be reading different news articles trying to figure it out, and the Iranian regime will come out and be like, oh, look at how horrible the Israeli government's acting, and let's fix it. I'm like, you're in no position to be talking. You treat your own people like dirt. You have you're killers, essentially. You're power hungry, fake holy men who've gotten in position and who don't respect anybody. And so you're in no position to judge. But that's the thing. And then you're like, well, why doesn't Israel stop expanding? And some people say, because they should have a larger foothold in Israel, and because they're being threatened by agents and other nations like the Iranian, and again, Iranian people, really cool people. Iranian government, really shite government. Out of if we were to give it a ranking, it's quite shite. Okay, let's just call a spade a spade. And that's the thing you see is and then all of a sudden it gets easy, because then it becomes a Middle Eastern problem. Well, it's those people. It's no, man, it's all of us. And I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers, but I'm just saying, let's not. How did. When I look at history, it's like, how far back do you really gotta. Sometimes you gotta go back, and sometimes you gotta go forward. Sometimes you gotta go back to realize, like, what happened? How did all this start? How did all of it start? I think that it just starts with the othering again. It goes way back. I think, who created who? East versus West. West versus East. To me, it's all one interconnected piece. I mean, like, have you ever looked at the map? Have you ever realized how close North America is to Asia? In terms of, like, the land masses, how they stretch out. I know we're getting a little bit off topic, and I'll try to, like, direct everything kind of in a nice direction, or something that's digestible for everybody. But what I'm trying to say is that we're all connected, man. Have you ever seen how close Alaska is to Russia? And how did it all start? Like, we go back in history, we were all, you had Pangea, humanity emerged from Africa. We've all got a little bit of African in us. We've all got a little bit of everything in us. That's the thing that I've realized when I did a little bit of digging into things, looking at history, looking at race, looking at ethnicity. It's just people immigrating and then creating new languages and then becoming unfamiliar with each other, and then one day running into each other after a long time. It's like forgetting that you had family members, essentially. And you run into them, you're like, who the hell are you? And then they're talking a whole different language from you, and you're like, whoa, what is this? This is different. And way back, that's how it was, I think, like, for example, I think that's how it is. Nation states are constantly being built, rebuilt, lands are constantly being imagined and reimagined. I think maybe the first few encounters that the first encounter that the Greeks had with the Persians, that was kind of like, one of those moments where the initial meeting of the other, right? They weren't even called Persians back then. They were called Medes, or the land of Arya, or what have you. Different names, different ethnicities, or sometimes I believe the Greeks even used the term, I forget if I'm not mistaken, barbers, if I'm not mispronouncing that, but essentially, like, they encounter to a new language or new people, and but that's what it is. And I'm not an expert on anything. I'm just a guy who tries to listen to everything, who tries to, try to know a little bit about everything, because I think that's how you get to learn. And all these, like, different people coming in contact with each other, and, like, first of all, that's the thing, we were all in contact probably at one point, and then just, went in different directions, and then came back to find each other with differences. And these differences were, at times back in the day, it was harder to digest because you didn't have Google Translate. And that's how it is, a lot of confusion, the other. And then you've had the Jewish community, they've always been othered throughout history. World War II, we decided to, like, no, we don't want this we don't want it in Europe, let's move it out of here. So you have the creation of Israel, and then you'd have movements like Zionism. And at the end of the day, I'm just like, okay, the Jewish people definitely need to have their country. They definitely need to have a place where they feel safe, and a nation. Absolutely. Same with the Palestinians. They definitely deserve a country. So why not? Why can't we talk and just, like, come up with a solution? It doesn't have to be so, let's I think we're trying to split hairs here. It's like, well, uh, there's so many similarities. It's, I don't know, maybe did we get off topic a little bit? I don't know, maybe we did, maybe we didn't. Trying my best here, I'll tell you that. It's not easy talking about these things, but that's the thing. You talk and you listen and you try to learn, and that's what I'm trying to do, man. And it just makes sense if we were to have a two-state solution, like have discussions, have talks, draw some ideas up, see how you can, accommodate to everybody instead of, again, chucking rocks or feces at each other. And yeah, Israel's definitely thinking that they should expand, because if they don't, and if they let a Palestinian state to emerge, then they'd be a home basis for terrorist organization like Hamas, which is definitely a concern. Who's Hamas getting funded? By sometimes the Iranian government. And it's like, oh geez, why do we create these others when we can have talks? Because it's like, oh, everybody wants to dominate, right? Everybody wants to dominate. Nobody's willing to share. And it's like, man, whoever is, again, that's the thing. I really do believe every nation should look inward and get that democracy going. You don't want anybody being in charge for more than 4 years, or like, 2 terms, like 4 to 8 years, depending on the circumstances. But anything longer than that, it's just, we've heard that term and it's holds true. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. So should the Israeli government and the Israeli people be concerned about a potential threat from Iran? It's legitimate, because you have a lot of Iranian people, the diaspora, who've fled because of the atrocities that the Iranian governments committed. And sometimes it's incredible. So, you'll have acts of war, and through more war, you actually legitimize states into existence. Does that make any sense? I just want everyone to be able to travel everywhere freely. I'd like to see everybody's, but that's the thing, there's great things that we've got, and there's really no east versus west. It's just one. I know for geography and for purposes of traveling, it makes it a little bit easier, but these divides, these regional divides, these land masses, these borders that we draw up, and these flags that we put up, only hinders our progress in the grand scheme of things. And what is the solution? I think we as the people should be smarter, should be wiser in terms of electing or allowing people who come into power positions to be really doing it for the people. And sometimes it's like, well, some people ask, how much control do people have? And it's these are tricky questions, because you look at a problematic regime like Iran, and it's that's what I was kind of going back to. The invention of Persia, it goes way back. The invention of an Iran, it goes way back. It's the West really helps create certain nation states. And if you look at it historically, I'm talking about historical, we had a couple of, if you were to look at the relationships, yeah, a few of the kings in Iran were definitely, placed there by the United Kingdom, Americans, the government agencies like the CIA, have a king, take him out, put a son in place, he's not good enough, take him out, put an Ayatollah in place, because, and sometimes well, why would you do that? Well, could one reason be that's the thing, for us to be man, this can never be solved, is is incorrect and it's unwise, because oftentimes I think like, why do we believe that? Sometimes I think maybe we're doing it out of fear, because it's easy to have, if you got something good and you want to preserve it, sometimes it's easier to preserve it with having conflict somewhere else, because you can always point to the other region or other people and be like, well, you know how good we've got it going on? This is why you should follow rules. This is why you should conform, so that we don't turn into that. You know? The differentiation between people, and it's like, and that's the thing, people get wrapped up in politics all of a sudden. It's like, well, people everywhere are the same, but the governments are hella different. Absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like, we cause most of our own issues and problems because we want to hold on to power, and it's different people, different players, and I only know so much. I don't know everything. Obviously nobody does. Like, I barely know anything. That's the thing. I'm just trying to ask questions and figure it out. I'm like, what is the proper solution? Well, if we have an Israeli state, we definitely need a place for the Palestinians as well. It can't be just, because I believe got a population of 10 million Israelis, and you have a population of around 5 million Palestinians. So it's not a large number of people. It's still quite a bit of people, but it's like, man, can't we just manage this? And instead of acting from a place of love and understanding and empathy and wanting to share and preserve and build, we were like, nope, boop. And right now it's like, yeah, I'm worried, because I'd like to talk about these things, because I'd hate for us to be I don't want us to be teetering on the edge of another. People always say that, like, history always repeats itself. History always repeats itself. History always repeats itself. By that logic, I'm just asking questions, and I hope this never happens, but I hope we never have a World War III. Some may argue that we already are. Some may argue that World War II never ended. It just, it did officially, end, but there's so many proxies, right? You have the Cold War, you have ongoing war everywhere. And I'm concerned, because we elect, or we place radicals in charge everywhere, and then we're wondering why it's going down the shitter in some places. Well, it's because of the radicals. Most people practicing any form of religion are nice peepsies. They just want to practice their thing, do their own thing. The extremists are always the ones that get the louder voices. The extremists are always the ones that get attention, and they're the ones that are always like, it's my way or the highway. Like, who? It's like, no. Why do we pick the worst leaders, essentially? Why do we perpetuate it? Is it because we want to preserve the other? Because without the other, we wouldn't exist? And that's that could be said on a personal level and on a societal level. Why do we have labels? Why do we say, oh, you're this? We only like to identify the other because it helps us identify us, right? Because if I know that that's the other, and if they are this, that, and so many other things, well, that it's easier for me to identify myself. So I'm like, well, I'm not this, that, and the other, so therefore I am whatever I am. And people get so attached. Every generation, and we keep feeding it into it. It's like, what's your identity? What are your roots? What's your ethnicity? What's your race? And I've never been attached to a nationality. I legit think of it as just like random lotteries. Open up your eyes and you're born in a place, and boom, that's somehow you get, all these things, these isms, and you have to spend years hopefully trying to rid yourself off of the isms and the flags and the ideologies and the dogmatic views, and it takes a lot of effort. It's easier to just be like, well, and nobody likes a person or a group who's like, causing thought, because like thinking's like, who likes to think, dude? Well, this guy does. And I know a lot of you guys out there do too. It's just maybe you're shy. Maybe you're shy, maybe you're not. And again, it goes back to how do we regulate our thoughts without silencing ourselves? I think at the end of the day, if you give each other enough rope, hear each other's concerns, I think we'd find so much more in common. And you'd be surprised how little the differences are. Politically speaking, yes, absolutely. Should Israel be concerned about a radical Iranian regime? Absolutely. I think everybody should be concerned about a radical Iranian regime. Just as everybody should be concerned about a radical Chinese government, or a radical Russian government, or a radical Saudi government. Overall radicalism is of concern. It doesn't matter which flag it's under, or it doesn't matter which god it's pretending to fight for. At the end of the day, you're all just people, I'm just a person. Let's not get on these little power trips and drink our own Kool-Aid and think that we're doing God's work, okay? Let's work on yourself, all right? God would not, it doesn't matter which religion you are, or God doesn't want you to kill people. God doesn't want you to put a flag down with his name on it. God is within all of us. Like, there is the collective consciousness is God. That's what God is to me. The collective consciousness, the goodness in the world, that's God. You can't, it's not anything tangible. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. I guess you can't really touch it and feel it. It's thoughts, it's consciousness, it's within us, it's within all of us. And for people to have monopoly over God's word, or what it means, or how it's supposed to be interpreted, it's just it's backwards. And that's the thing. And I don't want us to go in an age of, well, we shouldn't have any religion. When I was younger, when I was in university, I thought I thought maybe that's the solution. For a while I was, trying different things out. Everything, just trying it out, just to see what worked. For a long time in my life, I was, self-proclaimed atheist, because I've had such a horrible view of what enforced religion or forced religion can be. So it's just like my family and I never really practiced any religion. I was kind of, I grew up to be a skeptic, grew up to be just like, I don't believe in God. And then later on I had to, that's the thing, one thing that I've still got to do is I've still got to put time to learn more. But after I, aged a little bit and gone through different circumstances in life, I definitely have found room for spirituality and a role model, a Christ consciousness that I'd like to be able to, strive to come close to. I'm never going to do it, obviously, because we're all humans and we're all flawed. That's the essence of it. But we can strive to have an ideal, and to each their own. I'm not here trying to preach. I don't care what you practice or don't practice. To each their own. That's what I say, man. But how do we avoid a World War III? Through talking, through listening, and actually taking steps to change. And I think it's happening. It's happening because I see so much better conversations, and I see so many more level-headed people coming out Come out of the closet, you level-headed people, because we need you. You know? Because it's, yeah, the loud ones on every side always are, they're ready to go. They're always, yeah, my way or the highway. Put this flag on my back, chant this slogan, get into this camp, form an identity, and it's like, no, man, I'm team humanity. I'm team humanity all day, every day. Yeah, so maybe the fear has always been, or maybe I don't know what it is, or maybe it's just like, I don't want to get too into like, yeah, we're definitely shifting. The world's definitely shifting, I think, and we already feel that. Power in the past used to be just like, one central location, but now we see it kind of, starting to split in different places of the world. And it's a little bit Orwellian. It's a little bit of that, maybe it's a little bit of a brave new world. Then you'd have different, 2 or 3 power structures, and together you can perhaps share power. I don't know how it's gonna, yeah, because it's so many things are interconnected, and I believe in honesty and truth. I think we can get a lot done with honesty and truth, and instead of, yeah, and there's a lot to be said. I don't want science versus religion. I just want the merging of the two so that we can come up with the best ideas of how to navigate ourselves through life, both on a personal and on a societal level. I think you should definitely be striving to work for something higher than above yourself. I don't think that's what I mean by either like a Christ consciousness or the goodness consciousness, or just like, I do believe in a higher power. That's what it is. And for me, I've embodied that or imagined that in the form of Christ. And again, I've got so much to learn, and I just, because if you remove religion, or if you remove spirituality, then you'll end up with a very brute sense of science, where science becomes religion. And stats and numbers all of a sudden become gods, and you'd only, punch it in a computer. What does the computer say? Does it make sense? And you don't want a world of complete rationality. In its essence, complete rationality is irrational. You don't want a supercomputer to be like, oh, well, maybe this computer will fix everything. No. These are all just tools. Everything we've got is just a tool, and how we use it or choose to abuse it is what it is. It's not guns that kill people. It's not bombs that kill people. It's not fast food that kills people. It's not drugs it's people killing people. And how it's not religion. It's none of those. It's just people abusing it. Yeah, because if we go in like a direction of just pure science, you're just going to be a stat. And if you get broken down into a stat, you lose a sense of individuality, and you're just another number. And it's so easy to get lost when you're just a number. I felt a little bit of that back in university. When you register and you sign up and you go and you become a number, they assign you a student number, and it's if you have a personal concern, most often it's, sure, they do their best with the resources that they've got, but a lot of times, and I wasn't alone, I saw a lot of my peers, a lot of my classmates, people going through different things, but at the end of the day, because there's just, too many students, not enough staff or facilities, it's like, if you have something of a concern that's like very intricate, chances of somebody like sitting down with you and like going through things with you is slim to none. You're gonna be, you're gonna have to go book an appointment. It takes forever to book an appointment, then go sit down with somebody, have 10 to 15 minutes to, come up. And that's the thing, this is the way we've managed, that's the thing, we have a lot of problems and we want to make sure that it gets, pumped out quickly. That's how it is in the judicial system too, in our law enforcement, in our court systems. People end up in all these intricate, complex situations, and we gotta pump out the legal. Don't worry about it. It's don't worry about the truth. Let's get it wrapped up, because there's just so many other cases and numbers that we gotta push out. And it's like, don't worry about the truth. And it's like, yeah, we all value truth, and how do we want to get to it? How do you guys want to get to it? Do you guys? I think we should get to it through just talking and listening, and the willingness to talk and listen. I don't think the answer is going to be given to us via a computer or, some sort of a tech that gives us, now we hear talks of, a couple of weeks ago, maybe I posted a video online that was depicting a chimp or a monkey playing Pong using his mind, using Neuralink. And a few weeks later, I read another article. It wasn't Neuralink, it was another company. There was this young gentleman, I forget what happened. I think maybe he was a soldier. Ended up with, losing all his limbs or body functionality, and essentially they put a chip in his brain, and I'm butchering it the way I'm making it sound. It's not as rigid as probably I'm making it to be, but essentially he could utilize his mind to communicate or do things. For example, he created a painting with just his mind. So these things are giving us access to mobility, and one of the ways that technology, and like I only use Neuralink because it's the most prominent one, and I'm sure there's different countries, different research groups that are doing similar things but differently, and we only get to hear about the prominent ones, so that's why I'm mentioning it. But with these things being pushed, there's always that, you want to have a selling point, and the selling point is, well, we've got all these problems in the world, and if we only knew people's intent and where they stand, what's the truth, maybe that'll solve our problems. And I don't think that's necessarily gonna work. Or maybe it will, I don't know, but it will definitely change what we are as these current humans. We are no longer going to be this form, and I think we can do that by realizing a lot of things that we've been taught in school, a lot of things that we've been taught in society we're going to have to do a lot of unlearning, and it's either going to be done through a technology that becomes a part of our lives, or it's going to come through talking. And I, for one, rather just talk and listen, and I rather hear the truth than it being forced upon me. But that's the thing. Imagine you got let's take it far. Let's move to a year where we've gotten the chips, or whatever. Again, I'm just talking about whatever I see and that's prominent or relevant to our daily lives. So let's say we come up with a tech that will make you'll have an interface with your mind and your brain. Process things quicker, think better. You may no longer, there's even talks of no more talking, maybe we'll have telepathy. Well, if we knew everything about everything, if I could communicate to you by just looking at you, and if you know my intent and all my desires and wants, what's left? It'll definitely revolutionize everything, and I don't think it's smart to want a revolution in that sense. I think we can perhaps use it to again give mobility and access to a better life to those who really need it, but I don't think it should become one of those advantageous commodities in society where people just acquire because they've got the means to. An example of that would be a better eye, a bionic eye that could zoom perhaps 20 times more so than your regular eye, or limbs, a bionic limb. But I think a lot of people are already waking up, and again, whenever I use that, it's been tarnished by the woke culture, but when I talk about waking up, I really just mean essentially realizing the fake realities that we live in. A lot of things need to change. Money needs to somehow either evolve or just go, because accumulation of wealth in this way is just disruptive. It's not good for us. It's innately wrong the way it's set up. For us to, and that's the thing, it's like, well, you need something to get people to work. People will always work. People are always going to be busy doing things and creating things and going out there, but it's the notion of, well, right now people aren't showing up to jobs because they get more from the unemployments. Well, what does that tell you about the infrastructure that we set up? Why would anybody want to show up to redundant jobs if they could be doing something better with their lives? Shouldn't we want that for people? Shouldn't we want better things? Why would I want the masses to go out there? And there's no disrespect to any sort of job, dude. You name it, I've probably done it. I have no problem with working, and I have no problem with people working and working hard, but there is a misconception in our society, or rather a myth, that if you work hard enough, you'll get it. And to a large degree, I definitely believe in free will, taking things into your own hand, forming a portion of your destiny. But having said that, a good portion of society falls under a bracket of the working class. What's the working class? It's different names, but essentially, if you are constantly having to worry about your rent, constantly having to worry about if you have enough to eat, you're in some sort of a bondage. Whether we want to call it a form of slavery or not, that's up for debate, but it doesn't matter. We can definitely recognize that it's a huge impediment. Our schooling systems need to be reimagined and reinvented. A lot of the things that we teach in our schools are not practical life skills, but we only teach, it's like, make sure we don't even teach anything really. It's we teach a lot, but it's so much of like, how much of your schooling from like grade 1 to 12 from high school, how much of it is really of like life-changing value? If we're being honest, if we're really being honest, how much of it is prepping individuals to go out there and be able to, provide a safe place for themselves, a roof over their heads, and somehow have food to eat and start to accumulate things that would essentially help them be better? We don't do any of that. Instead, we rely on a economical system that's purely based on speculation and inflation. And if you're lucky, you might be able to, get a little bit and move forward. But a lot of times, a lot of people, it's just like, yeah, I don't blame you right now if you're not showing up to some random job that was basically paying you bare minimum, and you still had to go out there 45, 60 hours a week, and you still didn't make enough to make the month. I don't blame you. I've had this talk prior when the lockdowns went down, and I hope we can achieve some sort of an infrastructure, some sort of a system that, helps cater to everybody, not just a selected few. And I'm not saying throw out everything, I'm just saying perhaps we could reimagine it. Perhaps we could create a system where we have more winners, essentially. And a lot of things are interconnected, man. And a lot of things are interconnected. That's the thing. We can't have conflicting ideas, because then we'll just take, one step forward, two steps back. And we've seen this happen over and over and over in history. We build a little something good, but we neglect other things, and then eventually, somehow or another, it all gets wiped away, and then we got to start from scratch, back to square one again. Well, let's try to do it better this time. Let's try to do it better, and I really think we're doing it better. There's so much hope, and I really have hope in the younger generations as well, and also everybody else doing it. Let's come together, work together, and we'll get through this. And for Palestine and Israel, I really do think some sort of a two-state solution where everybody's getting a fair share and, fair access to the same things. Should we have other concerns? Yeah, absolutely. If I were, in the Israeli government, would I be worried about the Iranian government potentially becoming a nuclear state? Absolutely. And if I'm a Western country, should I be concerned about everything else that's going on in the world? Saudi Arabia, China, so much is happening. What happened to Myanmar? Good Lord, the news cycle keeps going on with this, that, and the other. It's like, how do you keep track of things? But that's what it is. Each and every one of us can, do a little bit, and that's all it takes. Nobody should be doing everything. Everybody should do a little bit of something. But we need to take our focus away and our attention away from creating a world where it's all dependent on get that money, get that cheese. And if we are going to decide to, I guess, continue on that road, make it better. Make it better. Let's make it so that people have access to wealth and prosperity, not just for a selected few, because it's so easy to hear the politicians who are, for most of the part, they're like multi-millionaires who've been sitting back 10 million, 50 million in their bank accounts, lock it down, put a mask on it, close down the businesses. Meanwhile, they're living that exclusive life. Mansions, private jets, private schools, this, that, and the other. And then everyday folks who have to get out there. And how many businesses have closed down? And absolutely, we're definitely having those talks of now reopening, but let's also have these talks of reimagining society. Why don't I hear any of these things? What are we going to do about our national student debt? What are we going to do with the overinflated housing market? What are we going to do with radical ideologies? How do we stop them? How do we make sure it doesn't get perpetuated? And I think it's just by being more inclusive. You want to have less others, be more inclusive. You want less of an us versus them. Make everybody us instead of trying to, point the finger. You're like, it's your problem, it's your fault. Oh, you did it first, or you did it worse, and you did this, and so I did that. And it's like, this can go on again. It's like, it can go on and on and on if we let it. But it's like, you look at people who are in charge, who have been making so much money and like having so much prosperity off of people's children, essentially. You know how many people, like when I was I was a baby, I guess, when I was in my mom's belly. I guess that's when the Iran-Iraq war was going on. There was like bombs flying over Tehran, and I believe my parents at the time like had to take a little hiatus somewhere else so that my family and I could be safe. But a lot of people, and that's the thing, it's just like that's why I don't like war. I don't like fighting. I don't like conflict. I've seen what it can do. I've heard of horror stories. That's the thing. I just don't like. And it's like where you look at the regions and there's like so much in common, yet you put these radical people in charge, the Ayatollahs or the Saddam Hussein or the Bin Ladens, and it's like, where do these people come from? And you're like, oh, do a little bit of research and history checking, and you're like, wow, these people don't just like, pop out of nowhere. They're not just mushrooms. They're cultivated. They're housed. They're financed. And I think, again, it was done in the past out of a fear of losing what is good in one place. Because you're like, well, if we got something good, we got to create the other to point. Well, it's easy. It's always easy to be like, well, look how good we got it. Look at a place like North Korea. Do you want us to turn into North Korea? It's easy. It's easy when you have that. But I think we can do better. I think we can do better, and I think we should aim to do better, because that's the thing. If we don't, it can easily go down a path where we do see something like a World War III, or maybe, again, that's the thing. I don't want to be sounding alarms. I don't want to be That's all I'm trying to say. I'm just saying that we should have more, going back to the question, how do you regulate your thought without silencing yourself? I think for a lot of, and that's the thing, what do you need? You need people to talk, you need people to listen, you need people to be compassionate, empathetic, you need people to be forgiving and understanding that we're just humans. Whenever you talk, it's like you have an expectation of like, well, I want to know something and I want to know it now in the best way possible. And it's like, man, you do realize we're just like literally a few steps away from like chimps, right? We're just a little bit like smarter monkeys, essentially, is what it is at this point. So as much as like we've done great things, let's also remember the fact that a good portion of us are those animalistic primal creatures that don't necessarily always have the best words or mechanisms of communicating. So it's like, it's easy to just act on instincts. So listen, be forgiving. If somebody says something, don't stop living in a tweet world where you take excerpts of people's sayings or pin them to them, and you're like, well, that's your identity, you said this, or well, you've done that. And it's like, we can pick to look at people from little excerpts, or we can look at people holistically, look at people from a larger scale, and just make better decisions. And that's all I've got to say for today. Like, I don't know, in terms of great question, how do we regulate our thought without silencing or censoring ourselves through being responsible and really like, what are you doing? What's your intent? I'm trying to help myself and other people. So, let people talk. Let people even say I say a lot of dumb shit all the time, and that's the thing. You got to be okay with hearing the dumb shit too. It can't always be that rational robot thinking, well, go plug yourself into a computer then if you want that. You're not going to figure it out you're going to have patience. You're going to have patience and be okay with hearing dumb stuff, be okay with saying dumb stuff, be okay with just being human. That's what it is. I don't know if the beauty of it is we've got Friday, we've got Saturday, we've got a whole lot of other time ahead of us to just, practice doing things better. I was going to show you something on the internet, but today I think we've already went on for long enough. I'll leave it be, and we'll come and tackle the rest of it, whatever it is. And again, boys and girls, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. If it's your first time tuning in here, we are glad you made it. It's been a so-so production. We talk about everything and nothing. Just want to send out a lot of positive vibes, a lot of positive energy to everybody out there doing whatever they can. Stay safe out there. We're going to be seeing each other very soon, and I'm just biding my time, trying to pace myself, see what happens, and we'll move forward accordingly. I love you guys. Go after whatever it is that you're dreaming about, that you're passionate about, and do good things. And I believe, because that's what I see for the most part, a lot of people are doing great things. So hats off to everybody out there doing it. Thank you guys for all the love and support, and we'll see each other back again on Friday. Peace out, everybody.